Hi guys, welcome back for another video. This video is going to be a Q&A all about Murphy, no other questions, just purely about him, to break up these baby videos a little bit. A few weeks ago I posted on Instagram asking for some questions about Murphy, so I'm going to get through as many of them as I can for you guys. Okay, one of the most asked questions, and it was asked in a variety of different forms, is what are my future plans with Murphy after I have this baby? What am I planning to do with him? Some people ask, am I selling him? Things like that. My plan is to go with the flow and see what I can manage. Obviously, I don't know what it's like having two kids yet. Before I had Jonah, I didn't know what it was like having one child, so it was very hard to answer people when they asked me what I was planning to do with Murphy after the baby came, because I had no idea how I would manage it. But I managed fine. You know, with Jonah, I took him up to the yard from a very early age, about 5 weeks old, and I've actually done a video in the past about how I manage having a baby and having a horse, and I'll link that in the description if you want to go and check it out. But yeah, I think the key thing is when you have kids, you have to learn to kind of compromise. You still need your own hobbies and you still need your own sense of identity. So I didn't plan to sell Murphy or to stop riding or anything like that. I'm lucky enough that I have people in my life who can help me out with my kids and look after them sometimes for me. My husband is an amazing support to me. Some people aren't so lucky, and I understand that, but thankfully for me, I have that support system in place. So yeah, I would really plan to do the same as what I did last time, which is give myself 6 weeks to recover from birth at least, because I'm going to be having a C-section. Really, you need 6 weeks after birth anyway to recover, because your body's trying to get back to normal and everything. But particularly with a surgery like a C-section, I would not be attempting to ride before 6 weeks, definitely not. So please do not comment on my birth announcement asking me when am I getting back on Murphy, because last time when I had Jonah, literally I put up the birth announcement and half the comments were, when are you going to be riding again? You know, and I'm sitting there recovering from a C-section. So yeah, it's not really a sensible question. At least 6 weeks is needed to give my body time to get back to some sense of normality. Last time I was back on a horse at, I think, 5.5 weeks. I was on Punch. I got back on Murphy a week later, and I basically started doing light work with him after that. And I think we had our first show. I had Jonah at the very end of June, and I did my first show on Murphy on the 1st of September, and he went out and won his class. So yeah, it went really well last time. I don't know if that's going to happen again, but my plans for this year really is to take each day as it comes, ride for the pleasure of enjoying riding my horse rather than actually having to have these set goals and everything. Yeah, I kind of, in the back of my mind, when it comes to showing and things like that, I'm really not in any panic to go out and jump this year. Competing wise, I would like to get back into jumping at home. But I'm not going to push myself to go out and compete in jumping. I actually think it would be really good for me to do a little bit of dressage, maybe some showing classes, things like that. Something where I could go out to a show and not have the pressure of jumping, because Murphy is really unpredictable when it comes to courses. A show environment just really blows his head, and jumping just adds a whole other aspect to that. So I kind of think it would be really good to get him out a bit this year to a show environment, but not give him the pressure of jumping. So that's kind of my plan. I might try and do some dressage and like coloured classes, things like that, for the rest of this year, but that's dependent on me getting lifts and everything. I might not get out to any shows, but the main thing is me and Murphy are going to be both very unfit, and we're going to need to build back up again. So I'll probably just start bringing Murphy into light work. I'm having the baby for the next couple of weeks, which is the end of March. So say if I bring him in mid-May, hopefully we'll be riding by June and able to enjoy the summer together. Somebody also asked, will Murphy be really fresh when I start riding him again? Murphy is quite odd in that way, in that he becomes more fresh the fitter he is, rather than having time off. Normally if he's had time off, he's quite dopey and will be more kind of easy to ride, which is one of the reasons, which I'll come to in a minute with another question, that's one of the reasons that I am not worried about nobody riding him while I'm off, because it's actually easier for me to get back to riding him if he's not fit. So that leads me to the next question, which is why didn't I get a loaner for Murphy while I was pregnant, or why didn't I get anyone to ride him, or what am I doing with Murphy while I'm pregnant? So I've talked about this quite a bit before, again in my how I managed horses and pregnancy video. Basically there's a variety of reasons why I didn't get a loaner for Murphy. It's not down to just one thing. Number one is the financial aspect. It made a lot more sense for me to put Murphy out to grass for as much of my pregnancy as possible, because grass livery is a lot cheaper, rather than trying to find somebody to ride him, because in my view a loaner would be, I don't want to diss anyone who loans horses because I know there's plenty of great loaners out there, but I've heard too many horror stories, and I know that a lot of the time people who initially start out loaning might be more novice and maybe wouldn't be as experienced, and Murphy just is not a novice ride. And being pregnant, I would not have the ability to be checking up on a loaner all the time and monitoring what's going on with him. So I just wouldn't have felt comfortable with that. There's nobody that, now don't get me wrong, if I knew somebody who I really trusted, knew was a good rider, knew was looking a loan horse, yes, I might have considered it, but I didn't, and I don't know, I just would not advertise my horse for somebody to come and ride him. I just don't feel good about that, and he just learns bad habits too easily. He's quite an odd horse. It's not that I'm this great rider and I can ride him better than anyone else. I'm not trying to say that. It is just that he is odd, and he is, until you have ridden him, I can't explain that. He just is a very unique horse and has a very strange way of going. A lot of times my friends have ridden him and can't even get him to canter, but yet with me he's very strong, and like he can be really forward going when he gets lit up and everything. So it's just a weird one. I just would have struggled to find somebody that I would trust to ride him that I wouldn't have had to pay, and it would have been completely silly for me to pay somebody to keep riding him when that was going to cost me full livery and to pay somebody to ride him, when I could pay a fraction of the price to have him out on grass livery. That made much more sense to me, and it meant that I could, you know, financially cope then with being off on maternity leave better. I also just think it's better for Murphy that he gets a bit of a break. He has had time off just to be a horse, just to relax at grass. It's done him no harm. He's only 12, so he has hopefully got plenty of years ahead of him to do work and whatever. So I think it was quite nice that he got to go out and have a holiday. He basically went out for about 4 months, and then he has been in over like basically November, December, the wettest months, and then he's going back out again. So he was in full livery during the months that he couldn't be at grass, but he gets daily turnout and everything. So for me, it's just more of a weight off my mind knowing that he's being well looked after, he's enjoying being a horse, and nobody's teaching him bad habits. There's no, you know, there's less chance of him getting injured. Nobody's taking him out and competing him and maybe getting him injured and things like that. Like, that just would have been too much stress for me. So yeah, that is some of the reasons, as well as the fact that I don't really want Murphy to be super fit by the time I start riding again, because I'm going to be really unfit. I haven't ridden in haven't ridden properly since I was 12 weeks pregnant. I'm going to have had a C-section, which I know leaves you very sort of wibbly wobbly and your muscles are damaged, and just pregnancy in general is hard on your body. So you are not going to be able to just bounce back and just ride a horse like you always did. So it's better for me that Murphy is unfit and that we build our fitness together, rather than me getting back on this super fit horse after being off for so long. So another question is, how do I plan to get him fit again? So my sort of stance on getting horse fit has just always been to do your normal work but for short periods of time. So rather than doing flat work for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, I would always, when I'm trying to get Murphy fit again, you know, do my whole usual routine. Like I might jump him again fairly quickly, that's what I did last time, but it would literally be 20 minutes of work, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour of work, and then building up the length of time that he works. And I just find that builds him up better than doing one. He gets bored just doing the same thing endlessly, and then moving on to the next thing, the next. So I'll probably just start with short little bursts of exercise for both of us, and then yeah, build things up. I'll not be aiming to go out and jump massive heights very soon or anything like that. But yeah, I'll probably just start with a bit of you know, lunging and stuff like that, then a bit of flat work, building up to pole work and jumping just gradually, and building up the time and stamina as we go along. Somebody asked what my favourite thing about Murphy is. My favourite thing about Murphy, gosh, that is a hard one. Probably just his quirkiness, much as it annoys me at times. I just like his unique personality, and I like the fact that I never meet another horse or get on another horse and it reminds me of him. He's just completely one of a kind, so I love that about him. Someone else asked if I know Murphy's parents, have met them, or any of his siblings. I never got to meet any of Murphy's parents, but I have seen pictures of his sire. Unfortunately, both the dam and the sire are now passed away, so that's unfortunate that I never will get to meet them. Murphy's mum was a full Irish draft as far as I know, and his dad was a trotter. I've seen some pictures of him. He was sort of fairly similar to Murphy, I suppose, in ways. In terms of his siblings, if any of you have been watching me for a long time or look back to my old videos, you can see a horse, Billy, that I used to ride, which was quite a big cobby coloured horse, and he is actually a half brother of Murphy's. They have the same mum, so they're very, very different, like nothing like each other. But I have also met a few of his siblings and seen pictures of them. They are all quite different to Murphy, to be honest, and I've never ridden any of them, so I couldn't tell you if they're like him to ride or anything like that. Another question I got quite a lot was, do I hope that my kids will one day ride Murphy? That is a really hard question. I'm not sure, because as I say, he is quite a weird horse. He's also 12, so by the time my kids are kind of big enough to be riding him, I don't know, he might not, he might be retired by then, but we'll see what happens. I think someday, if Jonah and this baby are interested in horses, you know, I think by the time Murphy's retired, it would be nice to have kind of like a mother child share horse that we can all ride, that's a little bit more safe and predictable than Murphy. He's not really a children's horse, to be honest, but don't get me wrong, he is very gentle with Jonah, and Jonah just adores him, but he's not a horse that I would ever, like, I wouldn't even really put Jonah up in front of me on Murphy. If you ever see me with Jonah up with me on the horse, it's usually Punch, because Murphy is quite spooky and unpredictable, and I just don't really feel comfortable with Jonah being on him, except when I'm like holding him up on him. So who knows, I'm not really dying about my children riding him, to be honest. If my kids are interested in riding, that's great, but I'm not going to be kind of forcing that on them or trying to push it, because it is a very dangerous sport, and I'm kind of quite happy doing it myself, but I don't know how I would feel about watching them do it, so a bit hypocritical like, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I have a feeling Jonah is going to be interested in horses, because he just is horse crazy at the minute, but he may grow out of that, so who knows. Somebody asked, have I ever tried to use purple shampoo to get the yellow out of his coat? I don't know if that's a little bit of shade to say that he's very yellow or something, but yeah, I have used purple shampoo on him if I'm going to a show, and it works quite well, so yeah. But I really don't believe in bathing horses too often. I don't think it's really very good for the natural oils in their skin, and I don't really mind if he's a little bit yellow most of the time. If I'm going to a show, then I'll make an extra effort, but I really don't agree with people bathing their horses all the time, because I know with Murphy, whenever I used to hunt every week and I bathed him every week, it really made him lose weight because he was shivering all the time. And it's really not good for horses, particularly in the winter, to bath them too much. It's not good for their condition. So I don't do it too often, really, just if I'm going to a show. Somebody asked how Murphy is around Jonah and if my husband has ever ridden him. Yes, Peter has ridden him a few times. He got on him recently for the first time in about 5 years, I would say, and Murphy was very good, very well behaved. He is very good with Jonah. He's quite gentle, but as I say, he's quite an unpredictable horse, so not in a bad way. There's no badness in Murphy, like there's no nastiness in him at all. There's not a bad bone in his body, but he's just so incredibly spooky. And so strong and a little bit bullshy, so he would just run over the top of you in fear. Like if something spooks or scares him, he is total flight mode. So I would always be really wary of him around kids because he just could knock them flying very easily, because he has trampled me quite a few times or pushed me into walls or things like that. So yeah, he's good with Jonah, but I wouldn't say that he's completely trustworthy either. Someone asked what height he is. I measured him recently and he was 15.3, although I really thought he was bigger than that, but no, 15.3. What is the highest we have jumped together? The highest Murphy and I have jumped together is 1.40 m, and we've done that 3 different times, I think. So it's been a good while since I've had the guts to do that, to be honest. I think the last time I jumped him, probably in the last 3 years, really the biggest we've jumped is 1.30. But when I was younger and fearless, that we did do 1.40 a couple of times. Another question I've got a few times is what made me want to buy Murphy. I've probably said this in vlogs before, but I was not very sensible in my approach to buying a horse. I had been riding since I was 4, and at the age, I think I was 17 or 18 when I got Murphy. I wasn't looking for a horse or anything, I just was sort of riding for people at the time, and it just so happened that this guy I was friends with's uncle had bred Murphy out of his mare. He had never really been handled. He had just been left basically unhandled for his entire first 3 years of his life. He wasn't abused or anything like that, but just hadn't been touched, and was extremely, and he still is extremely spooky, but was like untouchable then. So he had sent him to my friend to get broken in, and my friend's dad was just like, oh, this would be a good horse for Gemma to buy. It was probably a little bit mad, and I probably only bought him because he was cheap, if I'm brutally honest. He was £600, which was nothing at the time. Like the market was quite good at the time, so that was really cheap. So yeah, I managed to scrape the money together to get him, and I never even saw him out of the stable before I bought him, which is terrible. I just saw him standing in the stable and he looked terrible. But I just wanted a horse so desperately, and I'd always dreamed of having a coloured horse, so he was like just right up my street. So I just took a gamble and bought him. So don't follow my example, but it worked out well in the end. Someone asked, is he a novice ride, or do you have to be quite experienced to ride him? When I say he's not a novice ride, it's not that he is dangerous or that he would be unsafe. I could put a beginner on him, and I have put, like my husband has been on him and stuff like that, and he's not unsafe. Like he probably would just plod around, but you need to be able to actually ride to get him to do anything, or otherwise he just will go along like a big camel, and he'll just, I can't describe it, he's hard to get into a canter. He'll just go into a big lengthy trot, and he'll be very sticky over fences. He's very difficult to stride, and I'm not just saying that. He is, like, even the likes of Lauren Eddysgun, who is an incredible rider, way better rider than me, will say that he is difficult to jump and difficult to stride. He's just odd. He's just very, very odd. So yeah, he's definitely not a novice ride. He does take a lot of riding, and he needs you to coach him with every step and every stride, and you really have to ride for a fence and tell him where to take off. So I would say no, he's not a novice ride. And I'll just finish with this one. A couple of people asked me if I will ever sell Murphy or if I'm planning to keep him for the rest of his life. Again, I kind of addressed this in my other video about babies and horses. I am of the opinion that you can never say never, and it would be really silly of me to say I will absolutely 100% never sell Murphy, because I've no idea what will happen in my life in the future. And if any of you know my backstory, you'll know that my dad passed away at a young age from a brain tumour. So I'm very aware that your health can change, things can go wrong in your life, you can suffer a loss, you could have financial problems, you could lose your job. There are so many things that can go wrong in life. So I would never say never, because if there was a point in my life where I financially or physically could not look after Murphy properly and give him the life that he deserves, or if owning him was impinging on my family's life and my family were suffering because of me having to pay to keep a horse, like for example if we got into financial difficulties and my children were suffering because of my hobby, then of course I would have to consider either loaning or selling Murphy. But those are all worst case scenarios. If life continued in the way it is and I could continue to afford it and all the rest, then I intend to keep Murphy for the remainder of his life. He is not just, you know, a pet or not just an object that I own. He is my friend, and I've owned him since he was 3 years old. I trained him mostly myself, and we've come such a long way together. I just can't imagine selling him. I really do love him, and I hope that he's with me for the rest of his days. I've no idea what that'll look like. I don't know when I'll retire him. I don't know how I'll retire him, anything like that. So I just don't know what the future holds, but my intention is to stand by Murphy and keep him with me the rest of his life. And barring that, then it would be making sure that he is looked after and has the quality of life that he deserves if I'm not able to give him that. But no, I can't bear the thought of parting with him, so something really drastic would have to happen for me to sell him. So that's it for this video. I hope it wasn't too boring. Hope you guys enjoyed finding out a little bit more about Murphy. The next horse related video I have up will hopefully be my first ride post having this baby, because baby is coming in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing that journey with you again and showing you how I get back into riding again after my second pregnancy. So yeah, leave me a comment down below with any other questions. I will aim to answer as many questions in the comments as I can. Obviously I can't promise I'll get to them all, but at least for the first few days I'll try and answer all comments. So thanks for watching guys, bye!